Welcome back. We're discussing freedom of speech and what limits it should face when it comes to hateful materials. I'm joined by Baroness Sarah Ludford, spokeswoman for the British Liberal Democrats in the European Parliament on the Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs Committee. She's in London and supports the principles of free speech above all. From Manchester, we have Mohammed Shafiq, the Chief Executive and founding member of the Ramadan Foundation, one of the UK's principal Muslim youth organisations. And before we get back to our debate, we have the results of our chatroom poll. We asked, should Dutch Member of Parliament Geert Wilders have been allowed to enter the UK to air his views on Islam? Now, we got 48% of you saying yes, he should have been allowed to enter Britain to have his say, while 52% of you said it was right to ban him from entering the country. As we get back to discussions, let's get Anwar on the line from the UK. Go ahead with your question, please, Anwar.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening to the gentlemen. Basically, every religion, Christianity, Islam, and the real Judaism teaches us not to hate any other religion, but it does teach us to preach. That's one point. Now, as for the freedom of speech is concerned, you know, this freedom of speech has always had a very ambiguous meaning. It does not mean that if I don't like somebody or don't like some religion or some institution, I dig out and tell lies about it and create hate, racism, and spoil the peace of a society.
Okay.
Now, one more thing I like to say is this. In the Quran, it says very clearly, and every religion knows, La ikraha fi din, that means there's no compulsion in religion, and that involves the society, how we speak to each other, how we live with each other economically and socially. And I think Britain has done a very good thing that they have not allowed him, because we live happily in this country, all the communities, and we don't like people like that coming.
I want to ask this actually to Baroness Ludford. It's an interesting point that, I mean, I know you've been supporting or at least commenting on the anti-Semitism reported rises in anti-Semitism. Now, it seems, of course, that there are sensitivities with certain religions, people would say, whereas in the case of Islam, people haven't been as sensitive. So, you know, how can you draw the standards between, say, what people saying things considered anti-Semitism and anti-Islamic?
Well, I don't think I'm being inconsistent at all. I mean, for instance, I do not support a ban on Holocaust denial. If someone goes around simply denying the Holocaust, well, then I think we should counter that. Someone like David Irving, we should counter that by vigorously showing the facts. What I'm talking about in anti-Semitism is particularly anti-Semitic violence, attacks, daubing synagogues, and I absolutely condemn the same that would happen to Muslims or to mosques. I mean, people who are spat at or attacked, or mosques are daubed with graffiti or something like that. That would be hate crime. And that would be subject to the criminal law. That is distinguished, and I've said consistently here that it is a difficult line to draw, but I condemn across the board anyone who is attacked or the object of hostility because of who they are, or their faith, their ethnicity, their religion. But that is different from nasty, offensive views which don't actually result in somebody being harmed.
That's maybe a question
it's a case-by-case assessment of what happened.
I'm going to touch on that idea of whether or not people might be harmed by this kind of material, but let me get Mohammed on the line from South Africa.
They might be, and then as I've said, he should be subject to the criminal law. If it is a judge that in fact his words do incite hatred, well then I'm fully behind the criminal law in that case.
Okay, Mohammed in South Africa, thanks for your patience. Let's have your question or comment.
If he wants to condemn Islam, why is he not prepared to answer the Muslim scholars? Like the brother you have on the show there, he's invited him anywhere in the world. I think he should take up the challenge so that we of Islam, Muslims, can give our versions as well.
Very true.
And to use the way he condemns us. I'd like to thank you for your show.
Mohammed, thank you very much for that. And that's an interesting point. I want to put that to Mohammed Shafiq with an email we got in actually from a viewer by the name of Russell Arlen Leach. It touches on this idea. It says, free speech is fundamental to a free society. The society that restricts opinions that are based on controversial ideas cannot consider itself free. The Islamic community has to accept responsibility for terrorist acts carried out in the name of God. Until culpability is shown by mainstream Islam, there will be a perception that the Islamic community condones these acts. And that, Mohammed, isn't that the frightening part, that basically the film Fitna highlights how some Muslim leaders do think it's extremism and they interpret the Quran for their own agendas? Isn't it also important to speak out against these people, to be a very clear voice against these kind of suggestions and actions of these Muslim leaders?
Riz, I don't know where some of these people are actually living, but in the UK we've spent many years over the past 4 or 5 years having that debate within the Muslim community to make sure that there is no safe place for anybody who advocates violence against innocent people. We totally condemn that. I have continuously, and I know many Muslim spokespeople and leaders and imams have spoken out against terrorism. We've done so much to achieve so much in the past few years, and we will carry on that work because it's our Muslim Islamic duty to make sure that we protect human life. But the issue here is not about the Muslim community taking responsibility. It's about Western Europe really realizing that Muslims are not asking for preferential treatment. We're asking for a bit of equality. You know, for example, I mentioned a point about anti-Semitism. If this was a gentleman who stood in Europe and made these same remarks about the Jewish faith or the Christian faith, would we having this debate? I can imagine there'd be uproar. So the people who claim to stand up for freedom of speech in a free society, you know, on the other hand, are trying to call for the banning of the Quran, trying to call for the banning of Muslims and Islam. And clearly it shows that Islam's not an oppressive religion. It's a religion that promotes peace and tolerance. And actually that's why there's so many people coming into Islam today.
Okay, we have a Baf on the Netherlands with a quick question.
Riz,
Go ahead.
Can I just respond to Mohammed there?
Please go.
I mean, if insulting views are expressed about Judaism or Christianity, that also does not necessarily amount to incitement to hatred. Just expressing insulting views, in my opinion, does not fall foul of the criminal law. That's not what I'm talking about with anti-Semitic. That's not what I'm talking about. Can I finish, Mohammed? That's not what I'm talking about with anti-Semitic incidents or Islamophobic incidents. That's not what I mean. I'm talking desecration of graves or daubing on synagogues or attacking people.
Isn't Baroness Ludford?
Mohammed, how can Mr. Wilders debate with you if he's banned from entering the country?
But I was going to say, Baroness Ludford, isn't there the danger that this kind of
I'm very happy to go and debate with him in Holland or anywhere else in the world.
Let me ask, Baroness Ludford, let me ask you.
Can I just
Wait a minute, Mohammed, please, let me ask Baroness Ludford this one question, though. If the film is, Geert Wilders is allowed into the country and the film is shown, for example, and there is riots in the streets, there is violence, it becomes a case of I told you so. Isn't it too late then?
No, I mean, let's remember where he was going to show it, actually. He was invited to a couple of right-wing members of the upper House of Parliament to show it in a private showing within the House of Parliament. So let's remember exactly what that invitation was. There wasn't any idea of a public showing. But, yeah, I mean, there's also, you know, some people will react violently but inappropriately to objectional views. So there's also an issue of restraint by people who watch something.
Okay.
I mean, there's got, you know, I think restraint all round is a good thing to have. As I said, there is no obligation to be insulting, even if one enjoys rights of free speech. There's also no obligation to react violently to views you don't like.
Baroness Ludford, I've got to stop you there. Mohammed, we've out of time. I have to apologise to Baf in the Netherlands, who had a very valid point. Baf, if you can go online into the chat room, we'll try and get your views in there somehow with us. But thank you very much for joining us, both of you, for this debate. There's so much more we could talk about, hopefully next time. And thank you for being with us too. On the next show, has the bubble burst on Dubai and other Gulf countries? We take a look at how the economic downturn has affected the once booming Gulf nations. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.